Brought to you by the ethereal presence known as secret scrimmages. Fuck it, one ticket. Secret scrimmages in preseason basketball. This is I just a general analysis of the game that Auburn just played against Auburn in Montgomery. Um, First off, R.P. Bobby Knight. I don't want to make him solemn or sad, but that is unfortunate, of course. Legendary college basketball coach. In regards to the attendance, which I know people care about, the official Auburn site has it at 9121. Probably a rough but pretty accurate estimate. I mean, they scan people in, at least students, using the tickets, and I'm not sure they would. They should have measures to count people who walk in, normal people that are not students like myself, but not sure they'd go about doing it. But anyway, probably about a rough estimate, give or take. The bleachers were more or less filled. I mean, there were definitely some spots still accessible, but more or less, not shoulder to shoulder in every facet. But the middle one was filled, which is important. I mean, that's the one you kind of need to be filled, visually speaking. And the sides were pretty close. You can still get seats up top for the most part. You didn't need to even use standing room, but good turnout for what is probably the first cold snap in I think about a month or so in this winter season. In terms of the game, AUM obviously a little bit of an overmatched opponent, but it's nice that Auburn runs these games against people who are in state and kind of keeps the money flowing around in state as well. Auburn University Montgomery is orange and black. They're the Warhawks. A little bit of a second-rate university in terms of kind of how you evaluate state universities, but I thought the uniforms weren't that bad, honestly. The big Warhawk font was pretty meh, but I thought patterns were okay. Black, gray, and orange is not the easiest combination to pull off, but I think they did a decent enough job. A very small team. Their fives were roughly our height in terms of who we play at the five, especially once Broom went down. But just did not have the same level of kind of girth that some of our dudes have. Which this is a team that slimmed down significantly to kind of be a little bit faster, which did play out in the end result. Or not the end result, but in the way they played, they did play faster than they did a lot of games last year. But even with that weight being dropped, I thought we were still a bigger team. That being said, I feel like it was always used to the advantage of the team around the rim. But let's read off the box scores and we'll just get some general thoughts. So game finished 102 to 66. Not particularly close with the first 5 minutes or so. Kind of got to the double digits pretty quickly. To read off some of the Auburn's guys, I don't really care to read too much about the Auburn University Montgomery dudes, but basically they shot field goal percentage wise as a team 32.8%. From three, 24%, and many of those are not of the open variety, and 81.5% from the stripe. The scores were tied twice, leads changed 4 times, so forth and so forth. All right, so Auburn University, the one you care about, 50% from the floor, 40% in the first half, and then 60% more or less from the second half. The three-pointers shot in abundance in the first half, 3 of 17, 18%. And the second half, they kind of cut off some of the unnecessariness, I felt like. 2 of 8, 25%. So all in all, 20% from three. And then 72.1% from the free throw stripe. Pretty discouraging, seeing as how they were 81.82% in the first half, 18-22, and then 13-21 in the second, 62% virtually speaking. 50 points, this is important. 50 points in the paint, 29%, 29 points off of turnovers, 11 second chance, 27 fast break, and then 58 bench points. The bench points are a bit of a misnomer, seeing as how Broom went down. So basically every point that any five scored at any point the rest of the game was a bench point. Desmond Cardwell started, I believe, basically started more or less. He only scored 9 points, and then they had basically Jalen play the five whenever he was out the game, who also gave him 20 minutes and 4 of 8 from the field and 11 points all in all. So those are pretty much your fives this game in terms of the competitive part of the game, I guess. Competition is what I meant to say. And really, I mean, a lot of quality height, I felt like. Our new guy, Cheney, who's the 3 in this lineup, legit 6'7". As long as he looks, Paul's on the screen, maybe longer in real life. The hands, which I thought were huge, are big in real life as well. He should be a very decent point of attack defender, I would imagine, as long as he moves his feet well. And the help defense, or the kind of playing the Nets pass over, which is something big in this Auburn defense, to play the Nets pass, because there's a ton of guys shooting for the ball and trying to go for steals. But let's just go into some more analytics, but analyze things a little bit. By the way, 43 rebounds to 33 in favor of Auburn University. 19 fouls to 26 in favor of Auburn. 19 assists to 9 assists. They did not get any points, obviously, but they didn't get many that were of the assisted variety either, outside of fast break points, which I'll get to in a second. 23 turnovers for AUM against 12 for AU. 7 blocks AU, 1 AUM. 17 steals against 7. So basically, I don't know if I want to do this first half, second half, or do I want to do offense, defense. I feel like I can't really do both in a very analytical manner. We'll just do first half, second half. Really, the first half was all about early on Auburn just not getting back in transition. It'd be like 4 guys get back, and then one dude just does not tag his man, essentially. Tagging your man basically means calling your guy. And the dude typically closest to the rim was typically the one that was not being tagged. There's a lot of just one dude just not recognizing who he has, and he slips out to the rim. AUM did a really good job of finding that guy in transition, and just kind of made Auburn pay for that often. It was just a thing where that, coupled with the fact that Auburn was trying to find that third point guard that you may see as some Pearl quotes on Twitter. Basically, Aiden is hurt with something that was not revealed up until the last 24 hours or so. I saw it on a forum post around, I think, 12 p.m. or so, maybe a little bit earlier than that. So this has not been a publicly revealed thing by the university, why he's hurt, but it's something to the effect where he didn't even really shoot around, if I remember correctly. I saw him sitting down for the majority of the time he was outside on the court. So typically, we have something like that happening. I don't think you're turning that around and playing in the next 6 days, but I mean, it's possible. It could just be a rest and trying to make sure that he feels absolutely 100% saved for that game. But I just don't. I mean, assuming that he didn't play in the Furman game, which he might have, he would be just completely like cold in terms of his stamina and game shape. Now, if he did play in the Furman game, or Furman secret scrimmage, maybe he's okay, but you never know, really. So I'm hoping he played in that game. If he didn't play in this game, I highly doubt he'll play in the Baylor game. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because they need him. Even as a freshman that has not shown anything yet on this level, they literally just need another playmaking body. That was very self-evident when they were running Denver and Katie point guard possessions when Trey was out. They're really trying to find something that they can do to kind of make up some minutes, because Trey obviously can't play 40 minutes a game, but it's just deleterious. The effects of seeing those guys like just dribble into help, dribble into what felt like double teams they should be seeing coming. I mean, if you just really wanted to see like the difference between a point guard and like anybody else that can just happen to dribble a basketball, just like go back if you can. Look at how Trey gets met at the half court, sees a double, can like angle a pass around the help that comes, and the offense just keeps going. Basically, you may sacrifice 2 or 3 seconds at most with that help that comes. And sometimes the double doesn't come because they want to stop you. They just want to like slow up the offense a little bit. When Trey was in, the offense kept moving. The pace was good. Basically, the ball didn't stick on the backcourt for more than 3 seconds. Really, it felt like it gets inbounded. Trey's looking down the court. He's scanning. He's pushing out there. in one instance early in the game, they kind of went to basically almost a turnover that KD caught and just bombed to Dylan Cardwell, who was nearby. But past that, his push ahead passes were really crisp. His vision was great. The two guards, unfortunately, their point guard efforts were not quite the same. However, as they kind of just started trying to play more sets, SETS, when they had those two playing the point guard de facto position, it looked cleaner. Like, it wasn't, Jared Harper, whoever you want to say, but it was cleaner. It was kind of what you need to do when you have those type dudes ball handling. And I feel like that's something that even Auburn do well enough in some previous instance. Now, obviously, we're playing against a nothing team that physically was overmatched in almost every position. But, I mean, Auburn played a ton of sets, and a ton of sets that involved guys getting the ball around the rim, which, if you ask anybody that's watched Auburn since 2017, simply put, they had dudes that could work around the rim and just ding the ball enough. If it's the early points of this run with Jared Harper and Bryce Brown and Javon and Samir and blah, 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 those dudes were, for the most part, score first guys. I mean, and they were really good at score first. So you had complementary pieces around them like Spencer, Malcolm Moore, Purifoy, Wiley, dudes that were willing to sacrifice, at least after 2016, where those dudes, the five stars, are kind of the face of the offense, and the guards was kind of like they played the back. Once that flips in the successive years, there's not many designed post-ups for the forwards or bigs. But this team fed into the identity a little bit. Chaney had an advantage height-wise and actually had some more chops kind of operating around the rim in terms of his footwork than I thought he would have had. Mazzara is not exactly, I would say, a back-to-the-back guy in any capacity, but he had height. He's wiry as hell. So he kind of, he works well off the dribble. I mean, he uses his height more than like an actual, effective dribble per se, but he's good enough to kind of get to his spots. He had a lot of finishes that I don't think will be like going in against better teams that have actual physique, which I could probably say the same amongst a few different people. But I will say, I really was encouraged in the second half when they started putting the ball down and actually dribbling, getting to the rim, using their physical advantage. There's a lot of Auburn teams, or there's a lot of players on Auburn teams that did not identify when they had a physical advantage, and that advantage was better put to going to the rim versus trying to shoot over guys. There's a lot of teams that didn't have that. Identity-wise, operating, if you go, God, the Clippers are stroking the Lakers. Sheesh. A Zep Jasper, I think off the top of my head, that's a guy that, even though he had a functional dribble and before he came to Auburn, a pretty functional mid-range, just never had the identity in his head to just go to the cup and make that work. It was few and far between when he was aggressive on offense. I think Chris Moore was a little bit more aggressive than last year or previous years where he was just fifth, sixth, seventh fiddle. I'm not saying to say that he was really involved in the offense. It's just he was getting the ball, trying to look to cut, and he would just pass it out, But at least he'd have kind of the threat of that. Took a couple threes that were not good looking. Chris Moore has honestly been one of the better open three-point shooters the last few years, which isn't saying a lot with the course that we had, but just did not have it at all today. Just had some open ones, but horrible results oftentimes when he shot. And you can say about much of the team. Basically, the only shooter on this team from a comfortability perspective was Denver Jones. Had a ton of open looks and made a ton of open looks. May have missed, I think, 2, maybe 3 open looks, but for the most part, just butter on those. The form is immaculate. The way he gets set up, immaculate. The things that really kill a lot of guys when they get to this level is that they speed up their mechanics as far as they're setting their feet and get into the shot. Denver doesn't get sped up in his shot very often. He may have had one that was a little bit out of rhythm, but for the most part, all of his shots were in rhythm, perfect timing, repeatable form, all that stuff that they kind of teach you. Outside of him, dude, I don't know where you can get to shooting at. Broom got one off before he got hurt, and that one was kind of more akin to 3-pointers, how they looked last year. Past him, I think. Who's your second best or your second highest shot taker? If I had to guess, I would say KD, who made I think one, maybe two. Jones put up 8, and KD put up 3. Jalen put up 3. Chris Moore put up 3. So Chris Moore and Jalen Wood combined 0 of 6. Looked about as uncomfortable as you would have ever seen them in the previous few years. KD made a really good one that was open. Don't remember the other two too well, but yeah, just a horrible 3-point shooting performance really overall. Nobody looked really particularly good from there. And that doesn't always going to be strength at this moment. Now, when it's what makes it better for a roster like this that is clearly like predicated around the point guards feeding the shot of them. When Aiden comes back in and you have either KD or Denver relegated off of the ball, which they should be off the ball, at least in terms of how they're getting their 3-pointers up, it's going to like up some overall percentages. Like Denver's going to be somebody like teams with the key in on when he's off ball. And that should open up some more space for dudes like Jalen, dudes like KD, dudes like Mazar, blah, blah, blah. So they don't have to rush their mechanics as much. And that's going to have to be something that just comes with finding out their ball handler, which should be Aiden. As a third, they really need a third point guard. I'll be honest with you. Like, it's not like college teams that find that. Like, you really have to kind of makeshift that third ball handler. Some people don't have to. Auburn has had many years post Jared where they just didn't have a second one and kind of made it up. I think the 2019-2020 where Samir was your backup point guard and didn't look great. And once you got the third point guard, like once those two were, you kind of had a stagger where those two pretty much were like on the court almost at every moment. But once you got to the third guy, it's like Jamal Johnson and Flanagan and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't pretty. 2020, the COVID year, where it was Sharif Cooper not playing, Justin Powell not playing, Flanagan's pretty much only constant. You made up like your point guard duties pretty much between Jamal Johnson and I'm missing Tyrell Jones. They tried and that was terrible. Basically, Auburn just has like historically under Pearl, especially recently under a successful run, has not found that third body of point guard very often. The closest they've gotten is honestly the years where Flanagan was the third playmaker, where you'd have Wendell Green and Zepp functionally be a point guard, but pretty much Flanagan was like your nominal second playmaker when he was starting, and your third playmaker overall. Basically, when I say second playmaker, I mean like he was the one playing off of either Wendell or Zepp, occasionally KD. Like he was just the other facilitator, and he's break glass in case of emergency. They really don't have that from what I can see on this team. Like the other handlers are going to be KD or Denver, and I don't think either are even remotely equipped to be point guards. They can dribble. I'm not doubting that, but they just are not. They don't have that bone in their body. And obviously, Leroy Berman, come on, I don't think the forwards do either. The forwards are not. I don't think the forwards are going to be the most comfortable dribbling against real teams that are putting real like pressure, which not everybody has those type of defenders. Like, I think the Kentucky, when we played them in the year we went number 1, Kentucky eliminated virtually every ball handler we had except Wendell and Flanagan. Zepp was thrown off the ball immediately because he was just met at full pressure or full court and was pressured and turned it over. They didn't have another ball handler really they felt comfortable with as a playmaker, facilitator. You pretty much had Wendell and you had Flanagan. That's more or less something that's probably going to happen in a lot of high-quality defensive matchups this season. I don't really trust anybody outside of KD, Aiden, or our guy Trey to be the playmakers. And I think Denver will be a functional ball handler. It's just like the attitude in the first half was just to get the shots up when they were open, and they kind of just chose to put their heads down a little bit more as the game progressed. So So hopefully, like that's something they could continue to do against real teams. I think KD can still dribble. I think Denver. I don't know. Denver doesn't have like I know Denver has immeasurables and all that stuff. I don't know if he's enough of a handler, in my opinion, like really get to the cup consistently against better teams. And he didn't really do too much in the middle, like in between stuff, like a floater or stop and pop for mid range, like a lot of stuff that you would maybe hope for a playmaker like type guy, but that just wasn't really his game tonight. Maybe he has it in him, but it just wasn't shown tonight. I think the most creative guy going to the cup, honestly, outside of the point guard, was probably Mazzara. He did some layups that were a little bit acrobatic, had a floater that he had the chance to kind of have some time to really key in on. Like sometimes you do a floater where it's doing your back and it's like it's doing coming up to kind of block your shot and like your instincts kick in and it's like a split decision floater. Wendell had some of those. Tyrese Maxey's really good on those, especially like before he kind of became three and to the cup type dude. Early in his career, he had a really good floater that he kind of didn't bring as much as he probably should have. Trae Young, very instinctual floater type of guy. What the one Mazzara had was like just like I have time to kind of like read the defense without really much ball pressure, and he just kind of went through his options and got to the floater, which still is very high level reading the offense. I mean, the floater is the best shot he could get out at that moment going to the cup, but it remains to be seen if he's like, I got two dudes coming down on me. I'm gonna really like split this defense and get like this tough finish type situation. But I thought he's a kind of creative dribbler. Cheney put the ball on the ground, put the ball and dribbled a little bit more than I thought he would have, which I was encouraged by because he's somebody has huge huge hands, very long arms. Should be able to do some of those like kind of awkward, like I'm dribbling, I get stopped, I do like a little baby hook or whatever, type floaters or whatever you want to call them, layups, I guess. He could have some of that in his game. I don't expect him to be like Kyrie Irving or whatever going to the cup, but when you have like that level of athleticism and just the arms and the hands, you should be able to do some kind of weird finishes occasionally. It's gonna be the big thing. I mean, this team is not, I think, equipped to be a laser shooting team. There's a lot of guys that just don't have like quick mechanics like that, I feel like, but they could create some open looks where they can choose to take either the open three or go to the cup. And I hope they do put more of emphasis going to the cup against real teams because that's something I don't think we did enough of at moments in some of these previous seasons where it's just like, oh my God, I'm open. I'm going to shoot. I'm going to shoot. I'm going to shoot. Even though like we're bottom 5 percentile in 3-point percentage, I'm still going to keep on chucking it up. I think we had literally like the worst disparity between like shots taken and the volume of how large that was versus how bad we were at shooting percentage wise. I think we had like the worst disparity, I feel like, but shouldn't be atrocious just off the nature of Denver, who's a guaranteed, which we didn't have that at all last year. And I think Aiden has a very high level jump shot as well from what I've seen and from what I've read. So those two should be able to kind of up the percentages a little bit. Hopefully. I don't have too many more thoughts, I guess, at this moment. Defense kind of really came to life a little bit more. I mean, they kind of could just play the ball, try to go for steals, stuff like that. And it became more of a half-court game. That's when they were comfortable. I mean, this is a team that like has not been exactly had rave reviews in terms of their defense in the preseason cycle. I think pros even admit as much that it's going to be offensive first team for a while. And that's where I saw, I mean, a lot of scores were just simply because this team just like did not identify correctly who had who. And stuff like that is fixable. I mean, if you have guys that are just like not good at moving their feet, just like kind of dumb defenders, that's a little bit more scary. I didn't think we had too many like dumb defense moments. I thought Dylan had some kind of early in the game when he's trying to like get adjusted to the speed and all that, but cleaned up a little bit. Didn't foul out, which again we had a amazingly biased whistle. I want nobody to put stock into like the disparity in fouls in this game. Like that whistle, you couldn't read into that shit. But once Dylan kind of got a little bit more comfortable, a lot less of the like coming up on a screen, not moving your feet. You get a body check foul. That's one of the worst fouls, and for any big to have. The foul where like a guy comes up, switches, doesn't move his feet at all, just bodies the ball handler. One of the worst fouls you could possibly have in basketball. And Dylan had quite a few in the last few years, but he's trying to clean up, I think, progressively each season. His best one might have been the Walker Kessler year, where like he just pretty much emulated Walker Kessler in as many ways as he possibly could. Wasn't the same like intellectually as a defender, but hopefully he can be that this season because Broom's hurt. Broom got hurt within like the first 3 minutes of the game, and it wasn't dislocated shoulder because he was able to kind of come back in and still. I believe he pretty much operated without the ice pack after a certain point. He didn't like lift his arm up, 10 feet in the sky or anything like that after that point, but he clearly was feeling it, but it wasn't dislocated. Definitely something serious. He did not come back to the game at any point, and immediately pretty much dressed out once he became back visible from the locker room. So he'll probably. I mean, he had something pretty similar. I feel like in last season, he played through it, but it wasn't like you could tell it was definitely bothering him. He's a tough dude though, so I think he'll play through it in the Baylor game. But it, I mean, don't expect like good shooting touch or a ton of like reaching up to the sky to kind of contest the ball type moments. At least with that the bad arm. But we'll definitely need him because I mean the five past, our guy Dylan. You got Jalen who I don't think he really needs to play much for with the way this team is set up. I mean, you have Simo, you have Mazar, you have Cheney. You have four options. I know they're going to be like intermingled between the three and the four, all of them, but you have options. I mean, you don't have to have Jalen play that much for really if you don't want him to. But I think the roster both has some pros and some cons from the construction last year, and I'll kind of end out on this. That clearly wanted one more like actually like good center. The dude from Marshall was one of their earliest transfers they would heavy for. I think his name's Hito Gloten or whatever from Marshall. Ended up missing him to Florida, but that's a guy that definitely you can see why they wanted him. Obviously, I mean, he's a high level player, but he would have more than likely just ate up the Cardwell backup center minutes, and then also played some four. Kind of allowed you to be a little bit, comfortable in what you put out there in the 5 and 4, pretty much all moments. I think there could be some moments of comfortability, especially with like Broom if he's like out for extended periods of time. Like if you have Cardwell out, you have 6'8" Jalen again at the 5, which you haven't really played too much of that in 3 years, give or take. And then I mean, Mazar is tall but very spindly. Cheney is, I think, a built 3, but I wouldn't say that the same as a 4. They're gonna have some uncomfortable moments with the way it's set up currently. I feel like, but I mean, you have options. It's just not like the cream of the crop, And they're definitely 1 point guard short. I mean, that's evident. I'm not sure to what extent they try to go. I mean, I looked through all the threads and all the posts and all the tweets and all that. Like, I know they went for extra veteran presences amongst the ball handlers. They just kind of just didn't work out for them. But yeah, they definitely just simply put one short. Unless they want to break out Jalen Harper, who is the brother of Jared, about a good 6 foot, maybe 5'11", something like that. He has a pretty secure handle. I mean, I know there's moments with the 2019-20 season where they had to break out. I think his name was Cook, the brother from Mobile that it was a walk on up until his last year. I think it was Cook. I don't know. He was black. He was off the bench. He was one of the walk-ons for a while. Ended up getting a scholarship his last year. Played sparingly, but in every other game or so, I would say, towards the end of the season, where they need another facilitator-esque like guy, just dude that like wouldn't look to shoot first as a ball handler. They kind of broke him out in some of those minutes where Samir and Javon were both out. It protected him quite a bit. Like they didn't ask him to do too much, but I think it's something they might actually like need to at least consider, see what Jalen Harper can do, because I mean, you won't need Aiden, anybody past Aiden and Trey in the best of instances. Like those are two dudes that can really start if you want them to. Well, from what I can tell, at least from Aiden so far. But you're not gonna you never have like dudes healthy up for that like entire season. It doesn't happen. You have guys that are beleaguered, hampered, sometimes even out. Like Wendell missed, I believe, a game or two, and you kind of had to make shift the point guard minutes in a certain way. Um, I mean, it's possible. I mean, it's definitely possible. So I think they're definitely one guard short and maybe one like high quality five short. That's not AD Scott, who seemed to, I was definitely rooting for him to get in there. He's, I think, like the first of the kind of other dudes to come in. But I was rooting for him to get in there, play like a lot of good energy. Dudes seem to like him. But he's not like, I would not say he's like a, real like, if you're playing him against like, I don't know who Kentucky's like Oscar Sheway replacement is, but like you don't need to see him against that type of dude. Which your third big is not going to be like against those dudes anyway. But like, you know, again, worst case scenario, Broom, gets hurt, Dylan gets hurt. You want like somebody out there. Anyway, that's about it. I feel like it wasn't too much to interpret from this game. I still did 30 minutes on it, so I'll go ahead and get this uploaded. And we don't play again until Tuesday. I'll probably still be watching some of the women's basketball games, but the women's basketball content doesn't. I don't seem to do quite as well on the old boob tube, and I also like. I kind of like affectionately know like a lot of the kind of play styles of the men's teams. It kind of helps when you get to watch them on TV, pretty much whenever they play more or less. But I don't want to pretend like I know the women's team and I don't really know their styles like that. But they seem to play a pretty competitive brand of basketball. Physically, I think Johnny Harris is finally getting those guys or gals kind of to the physique that they need to be at. Lost a ton of like pretty high quality talent from the previous class, at least the previous roster plus class. Some decommitments, some transfers, but they kind of pivoted, and I don't know if they have a top end. I don't know like the stars or whatever, what have you, but I think they have done a good job of kind of like moving with the punches, and I think this team could be interesting. I don't want to say like good, but could be at least something to watch. That's gonna be it. Peace.